Welcome to ASC Podcast. My name is Zubair Baloch, and I have an amazing group of people here who love ASC, they love cytopathology, and what we're going to talk about is very informal kind of chances and talking about your experiences about ASC, especially but how it pertains to the annual meeting, because we all come together at the annual meeting. So, and what I am not going to take the full names of everybody. You know these names, and if you don't, when you are at the ASC annual meeting, walk up, nobody bites, go talk to them and ask them about their experiences and what you can do. And it's a family thing here when it comes to ASC. It is, many people say, oh, you belong to a small organization, and I don't think it is. It is very, very big. It's a huge organization. Why it is huge? Because it has a big heart. And as you can see, the whole breadth of experience that is here with this. So I'm going to start with my first question, and that is what always I think whenever I walk into an ASC annual meeting, or I think of an ASC annual meeting or registering for a meeting, I always think of my first ASC annual meeting and how scared I was, but at the same time, how excited I was. So Amber, when was your first annual meeting? And you don't have to give me a specific date, and tell me your experience in few words. What was you feeling?
It was so long ago that I honestly don't even remember. It was at least 30 years ago, and I was probably terrified and didn't know anybody. I do remember one of my first meetings was, and this was not my first, but one of the first that I actually remember was in New York. And I met up with a fellow cytology student who we went to school together, and we roomed together at the meeting. So it was a great reunion. That's what I remember.
Okay. Was there anything, did you got to see any of your mentors that you just read about, their books or chapters and stuff like that?
Oh, of course. I was always amazed at the people who were there that, you had heard their name and you were just like, oh, I can't believe you're actually in the meeting with me, and I've read your books and things. So yeah, it's always a pleasure to run into people like that there.
And how does it feel now?
It feels like family, like just what you said. So 30 years of going and maybe it's the only time in the year that you see somebody like that. Yes. But we all come together and, embrace the moment that we have with each other. And I think it's a beautiful thing that so many people have, stayed in the society over the years. And I just feel like it is my second family.
So my first meeting was in 1995. I was a fellow at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and I had signed up for a fellowship in cytopathology with Dr. Gupta, late Dr. Gupta, and he said, well, I better see you at the New York meeting. And I think it was at the Astoria Hotel. And I went in and I attended a course from Dr. Bibo, and I saw Dr. Bedrosian, and I was so scared. But at the same time, I was so excited because we're such a close-knit group of people. So I'm going to ask now Wanda. Wanda, what do you think? When was your first meeting, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually remember it pretty distinctly. It was in 2017 when I was a cytopathology fellow, actually with Dr. Nishino, who's on the call as well. And I remember it was such an amazing experience being able to go. I was a bit, nervous at first. I was presenting, and it was my first meeting, but it was such an amazing meeting going and just seeing everybody. And, there were, of course, the people who write the textbooks, but they were so relatable. Everybody was so welcoming. It was such a fantastic experience. And it just really gives you a sense of community and what a really great family cytopathologists are. And a great community. And, I've gone every year since then. One year, of course, virtually when it was during COVID, but every year it's just the same thing. And it's fantastic seeing everybody. You get to know everybody. It's a really great experience going to the annual meeting.
Great, wonderful. So we're going to walk to across the pond. Ash, what do you give us your thoughts?
Thank you, Zubair. So I'll tell you, my introduction to the ASC dates back to 2010, when this was the International Congress of Cytology in Edinburgh, which I was part of the host team of. And I met, a few American colleagues for the first time at that Congress. And I'll tell you, I remember to this date what an impression Professor Syed Ali's lectures on the pancreas and thyroid and his workshop had on me. And I just went up to him at the end of the workshop, and I just wanted to shake him by the hand and say, how blown away I was by the content of his talk and the quality of his slide workshops. And I said, I would really love to come to an American Congress as well. I haven't been to a one before. And so 2011 was my very first one. And so I signed up. And again, to my astonishment, the incoming president of the ASC was none other than Dr. Ritu Nair, who was my senior colleague at medical school in India. And to have, my own senior from a medical school in India being sort of crowned the president of the ASC was unbelievable. I just thought, how embracing and how diverse and how accepting it must be to come as an international graduate to the US and to be able to rise to the position of president of the ASC. So that again really, really impressed me profoundly. And since then, of course, I've attended almost every year. I put myself forward for some proposals for running workshops and roundtables and different slide seminars over the years. And again, I was delighted that those proposals were accepted and I got invited back. I have to say, of the many cytology meetings that I attend nationally and internationally, the ASC annual meeting rates the top one in terms of organization, in terms of scientific content, in terms of, I think, the fun elements included as well. So it is, my favorite cytology annual big meeting to go to.
Thank you. That's a big kudos to the annual meeting, because I think it really highlights what we all try, and we have been actively involved in the ASC, not just attending, but in creating and stuff. And that's what I think. I think it's that goosebumpy feeling, because there's so much to learn, but at the same time, the social scene and seeing those faces. Manju, tell me about your experience over the years.
Yeah, so, I attended my first meeting in 2013 or 2014 when I was starting as a faculty in our program. So I was super nervous, and it was my first conference in the United States after coming here. So I had no idea how it is going to be. Amber can still remember, I guess she was a program director at that time. So I was just keep asking her, what do I do? What do I do? And I was walking around with the program in my head, checking up all the things I attended and those kind of things. So, but it was so wonderful. It was a wonderful experience, the same way I heard now that first time seeing a person which you have seen his name only in the research paper was an amazing feeling. Dr. Syed Ali, Dr. Fantonovitz, because just then I completed my PhD in virtual microscopy. So I was reading all the articles and seeing those people in person was an amazing feeling. And after that, my nervousness has decreased and excitement got increased. Every year I moved to attend the ASC meeting. So such a wonderful experience. Now I feel like a family too.
So I want to change the question a little bit. So, so our first meeting, then we have been attending all these meetings. So Deanna, so from your first meeting, how have you seen the way ASC has progressed and the delivering the educational content, the international presence? So what are your thoughts? I mean, give me short statements. So for our audiences. So what do you think?
Well, I started, my first meeting was in 2015, and I started in a very, like a blast, because I was one of the panelists at the seminar diagnostic, and I have never attended the meeting. So being in this very popular, very famous session was a little bit nervous, but at the same time, since the beginning, I realized, which is also now and was more and more, how this this society was and is inclusive, not only for American, but for international. The next year, in 2016, I won one of the award, and Stefan Pabuchan told me that was the first time that they opened to an international. So really, what I have seen then in 2017, I have attended all the meetings, just one. I was not in Las Vegas for personal reasons. I have always seen more and more the open position to the international presence as really a family, regardless of the country, regardless if you are American or if you are not American, just a family of cytology. So this is improving every year since my first experience, which was amazing. But you know, I have seen it significantly going farther and farther, arriving also to this last meeting that we will have in Austin, in which we have also some international specific sessions, which is for us, you know, just opening to a close interaction, which is in cytology, because it's regardless of the country and the countries.
Great, thank you so much. Sinchita, what do you think? Same question to you. Have you seen this all develop? And what are the major key point changes that you have noticed?
Yeah, so again, I guess, like, you know, I've been attending this meeting for over 10 years now, and it has grown. And as everybody has pointed out, I think one of the key features of the ASC and the annual meeting is how inclusive it is. And even though it's the American Society of Cytopathology, it's embracing to everyone. And you can see that in the program. Like, I was looking at the program schedule this morning because we were going to have this discussion. I just wanted to see what the annual meeting had to offer this time. And it's amazing, the program that you guys have put together, and kudos to the committee for doing such an amazing job, because it not only focuses on what's current and relevant for everyone who does cytopathology, but it's also embracing everybody across the world. It has such an international flavor. And I think that's, again, if I were attending a meeting in another country, that's what I would be looking for, that they're welcoming and they want me to be part of them. So I'm pretty sure, you know, if we ask our international colleagues, they would say that they feel part of this family. And that's what ASC has always been. And I think for me, the first time I attended ASC, that was like literally a revealing moment, because in the past as a trainee, I had mostly attended JUSCAP, which is a huge meeting. And you're trying to select between which sessions you want to go to and which subspecialties you want to focus your energy on. But then I came to ASC, and it was a smaller meeting, but like everybody said, you know, you get to meet all of these stars of cytopathology, and everybody was so kind of welcoming and approachable, and it felt like a family. And truly, like everyone has said, this is my second family. I love coming here, and seeing my friends and colleagues is probably one of the highlights of the meeting. I mean, of course, the scientific content, but and it has definitely grown. And I think just the emphasis on staying relevant and current and trying to approach topics that are of interest to everyone and being that inclusive, I think that's one of the highlights of the meeting.
Oscar, what are your thoughts? Because me and you basically are in the same age and educated group. So tell me, what do you think?
For those who don't know, Zubair and I, who were co-fellows here at Memorial, and we actually, yes, and I also, my first ASC meeting was the same one in New York. And we had to take turns going there because we're probably grossing at the same time. But I have seen a big change in the ASC. The evolution of ASC has been really palpable. I think when we first started going to ASC, there were all this emphasis on morphology and the description of all the morphological features of different diseases. And I have seen that the SC has grown, and it's not only focused on morphology, but it's also evolving together with pathology, with the inclusion of molecular techniques and different types of technologies. But at the same time, it has done in a way that includes everyone. So I agree everything that has been said about the society being so inclusive. But it's really this collaboration spirit when we address these issues in cytology. So I couldn't, I'm sorry for repeating, ASC has become also part of like a second family for us. It is much more collegial, or I wouldn't say collegial, but it's much easier to talk to our colleagues at ASC. The other meetings have become so large that you go there and you attend some sessions, but you barely can talk to your colleagues. So I really enjoy, and I always look forward to attend the ASC meeting.
Yes, I mean, so this is not repeating yourself, because I want this to be known. These are our feelings. You know, it's a family. It's almost like a family gathering. It's easily navigable. The program is for everyone. And it's something that people can enjoy being part of and also attending that meeting. So Michiya, what are your thoughts? And since you've been involved in the committees, you've done a lot with ASC at very limited time span. So tell me what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so my first ASC meeting was 2012 when I was a fellow, and just touching on what all of you have talked about, the meeting always does such a wonderful job of balancing cutting edge, boundary pushing content with the practical sessions that really reinforce the importance of cytomorphology in our day-to-day practice. And over the past 10 years, there's been a lot of just new and creative sessions beyond the tried and true, VMTs, the short courses, the panel sessions that really work hard to engage the audience in a really meaningful way. Deanna, I know you and Gulis have worked on the World Vision efforts, and Sinchita, you were involved in the Shark Tank. These are all just, wonderful ideas to get the cytopathology community excited about coming together and having a lot of meaningful interactions and really raising our field upwards. So that's just been one of the most remarkable things that I've seen over the past decade or so.
So the message that I'm hearing is that we're keeping the norm. We're keeping that basic teaching. We're back to 4+. We are bringing the new content in light of what is needed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what it does is kind of satisfies the trainee level, all levels in cytopathology, or all levels in pathology, which is very important for a successful meeting, because you cannot just gear it to delivering one type of content. So Swikrity, I have a question for you now. So we all talked about, like, let's say we talked about the past and the currently where ASC is. So and I'm not just targeting you because you are one of the younger people here, but what do you think where this meeting what do you kind of see this meeting to be in the future? If you are going to continue coming, which I'm sure you will, what will be your thoughts about that? Where this meeting has to move also, how we can do that?
So honestly, it's been 4 years for me, not that long. I feel like I'm the youngest.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Right. Yeah. I started in 2019 as a PZY3 resident, and I met, I was working with Dr. Pantanevich, but I had never seen him in a national level. Mm-hmm. I was starstruck by Dr. Pantanevich alone, and then followed Dr. Nair and, everybody in this call. And by now, honestly, within 4 years, I have developed a tremendous network. Attendings, which I used to look for, are now my colleagues. I call them by their first name because they forced me to during the informal lunch and dinners. So for me to continue attending to these, and for other younger individuals, I still get a lot of messages from the people who are trying to apply for cytopathology fellowship. And the first thing I tell them is, hey, apply to one of the ASC committee, attend these meetings. you learn a lot by going to the first time attendee meeting. You learn what cytopathology as a family is. And for us to continue doing that, I think these opportunities needs to be open to younger individuals to work in the committees, to present in the talks, and recent advances like we are always doing, an all-inclusive international committee. Last time I met one of the resident trainee from Singapore, and she's actually working with me in various aspects of cytopathology, and that's what we are looking to develop, I guess, as a team.
Great, excellent. Thank you. So I'm going to now go to Dr. Siddiqui. Momin, so you've been involved in ASC committees, executive board, and now you're going to be our next president of the ASC. So, we do a little bit of the same, and the middle is kind of mixture, and then we do some content, which is kind of challenging because that's which I call as a risky content, because you take the risk of presenting it with the hope, and so far the meetings have been successful in keeping it. So what will be your vision for this annual, I will say, meeting of mind or gathering, which is social and educational? I took the social first. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, thank you for coordinating this session, Zubair, and also for leading the scientific program committee during the last few years. And I think it's going to culminate into a fantastic meeting this year. I'm truly excited about it, the program, the content itself. I think with regards to the core elements to your question, what is the theme going to be? Obviously, the theme is going to work with what we have already done in the past and use that as a stepping stone into what may be currently needed in the future. And I think number one would be ambassadorships. I think that is something which other organizations have done, and I think it's time we look into it and at least make a start, and maybe that would collect a wider group of younger individuals who can be our ambassadors with specific goals, such as maybe reaching out to colleges or high schools or to vocational programs who may be interested in becoming cytologists or even working in our laboratories. So that would be one goal I have in mind, and I have some fantastic people I have already thought of as being included in this. But I think the current DEI committee has also done a lot of work in this regard, although not necessarily with those titles. So I think that committee would be integrating this element and might be further refined with a slight name change, plus with the addition of the ambassadorship. But more so, I think a grander vision, if I may say so, is what we have been doing is we've been standardizing our reporting systems. And if I may say so, very successfully, starting with the Bethesda systems with cervical cytology and thyroid cytology, and moving forward with what we have now with the Paris system as the second version came out and is being successfully implemented. And then not to discount the WHO's efforts in the pancreaticobiliary and lung cytology realms, which have already been published along with other editions, and more to come on that. So again, we have a very strong foundation, and I think most of us as members, we have contributed to the buildup of this standardized reporting system. But again, now we have molecular technology that is impacting our workflow, not necessarily just the reporting part, but also the downstream effects of incorporating the molecular procurement of material or how it's processed. So I think the key word here is optimization of specimens, which would be the next segment. And I think we have some great individuals who've started working on this at a very granular level. So I think that would be the theme, and I plan to set up a task force, and we will work on optimization of samples, primarily for lung cytopathology samples, but not to exclude other organ systems such as the pancreas, the thyroid, even the urine. So that would be the main goal, and more to come on that. So that's one thing I just wanted to mention. The
So what
social
do you-
aspects, I'm ready for the social aspects, the first time attendee gathering. It's always a fun event. If there is going to be a reception, I hope to see some cowboy boots there with hats. Remember, it is late in the year, so black felt hats would be required, not white ones. That's the culture in Texas. So if you have one, bring that along.
Okay, so I have to go shopping now. Okay, so I have one thing. So if we have to change the social aspects are there, and we try to balance as much as possible. But there is a lot of people also, and then there is the educational stuff. If we want to change one thing about the meeting to make it more inclusive, or make it much more fun reading and teaching and all that other stuff. So Amber, what do you think? What you will change one thing that will, what you think may be helpful?
Good.
That's a good question. I feel like we do a pretty good job of breaking out into smaller groups and socializing on our own, but maybe making that more part of the meeting. So maybe having like the first time, attendees. Well, that's great, but that's just first time attendees. So what about people who are in the middle, or people who, maybe haven't found a great network yet? I think that we get together as educators, but it's not a social, meeting. So, I mean, maybe more of those types of things focused on, things that your career maybe has focused on, and maybe doing more small gatherings like that in social events. So that would be one thing I think that I might change.
Great. Vanda, what you think? If you have to change.
That's a tough question. I mean, how do you improve?
Well, I'm known to put people on the spot.
But I have to
no negative points, but these are all positives.
Yeah, I mean, echoing what everybody has said, I think it's such a fantastic meeting. It's such a, there's such a broad spectrum of topics that are covered, which I think are great for people who are just starting out to people who are more seasoned as well. So you're always learning something new at the meeting, and there are quite a bit of social events. Echoing what Amber was saying, some organizations such as USGAP, I believe, do like mentors at the table and things like that. So maybe that's one way of getting more trainees, and whether they're pathology trainees or cytologists, cytology trainees, that could be one way of being more inclusive and, just opening it up to other people. But yeah, I think it's such a fantastic, I was afraid to get that question, but I think that's
all good, because, we have Momin sitting here who's going to, so I think it's important for all of us to hear that. And any feedback is a good feedback. It's never a negative. Deanna, you attend national and international meetings. What would you like ASC to add or do more, or subtract or add to make this meeting more? What will be your point of view regarding this? Deanna, you're muted.
You mean to create more, for the
anything
presence
that we can
as
do to make it more, you're coming from another country, you've been involved in other international organizations. So what do you think ASC should offer more of, or add something that will make it much more attractive to a wide variety of audiences?
Okay. It's not easy because, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, and also in my personal experience, what I have had from the American Society of Cytopathology, I didn't have from the other international and European societies. So for me, it's really the American Society is my art, and also the possibility to do as a part of this society what I what I have done and what I could have expressed by myself. So maybe my idea is always, of course, I'm an international, so pushing a little more on the international. For instance, the idea of, we have the first attendees party. We could do something like a party including the international people. And in this way would have been, first party and first or international in general. Or also, for instance, from a social point of view, because the program is always amazing. So just this. Also, for instance, doing pushing, like in the evening event in which we can be together more social instead, for instance, to have dinner like groups, just having something all together. And for instance, one evening we could have something related, a joint social event of the different journals, including, diagnostic, cancer cytopathology, JASC, and having, a sort of all together, because at the end we are all together. So it's not a matter of creating something which might be some event in this way. So in international, first attendee, journal, social, I don't know, interaction, something like, really global.
Momin, are you taking notes?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what do you think, Michiya, what will be your thoughts if we have to do something that will be, I think we're doing good, but, it's always good to have some ideas. What will be your idea that ASC can do to the annual meeting? And we're talking about annual meeting, not as a society as a whole, that make it more attractive.
Yeah, the annual meeting is such a great event where just the entire community comes together. So is there a way we can leverage that towards something better? Just some ideas that come to mind, like hackathons, or where we just come together to identify a problem that's important in cytology, and then just have all of us at varying levels work together in small groups and maybe come up with a potential solution that the ASC or the greater cytopathology community can come together and work on. So that's one potential idea. Things like coming up with new presentation formats. The World Vision I like, the Shark Tank. Is there something we can work on together to really excite the community even further? Another thing, there was a recent Cancer Cyto paper that Sarah Monaco had been an author on about 3D printing. Is that something that we could bring to the meeting where, we have people try out various gadgets and models, and through that iterative process of refining, 3D designs, we can come up with something really interesting. So I think some real world kind of in-person collaborations, for this annual opportunity where we all get together might be kind of fun and might yield some benefits down the line.
Good. Ash, are you there? What do you think?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry,
if you're busy, that's fine.
Actually, no, that's okay. That's okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I think you're breaking up a little bit, but you're coming through. It's fine.
Okay. I was going to say two things. One, that I think cost can be a bit of an issue for international attendees. In spite of all the discounts, etc., that are offered, it just all adds up. The flights, accommodation, and all the rest of it. If we could make the materials available post-meeting, recordings, etc., and being available on, on demand, on a sessional basis, because, the international attendees might be coming interested only in one or two areas of cytopathology that they practice or want to learn something new about. And if they're able to just buy these recordings, even if they're unable to attend in person, at least they don't miss out simply because they can't get to the States and to fund themselves to travel. And so that's something to consider. I know the pandemic, obviously, that was an option when the meetings had gone hybrid or online. But I think there is value in continuing to have sort of post-meeting recordings available. And the second thing I was going to say was about companion meetings, ASC companion meetings at other international meetings, and also companion meetings of other international cytology societies at the ASC, which again might bring more audiences to the ASC. Thank you.
No, I think that's very important, because I think we cannot survive in a silo anymore, because the world is becoming too big. So we have to be very inclusive by having everybody come to the podium to hear their thoughts, because I think it's very good, important for our growth to see how other people do things. So I'm going to kind of switch this question a little bit, because that's what I always thought, and I really don't know whether I have the correct answer. So there's academic practice of cytology, and then there is a community practice of cytology. Sinchita, do you think we do a good job in incorporating that thought process on the content that we provide, or anything that we do at ASC meeting that really creates a balance, or we are kind of shifted more in one way as compared to another?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, coming from an academic center, my perspective is sort of geared towards an academic viewpoint. But when I look at the program schedule, I think it is pretty inclusive. We do have, and again, like it was already mentioned, the program is geared towards not just like just practicing pathologists, but cytologists for our trainees. And it kind of covers different areas of like education. I saw there's like a lot of things in terms of cytology education, not just for the residents and fellows, but also for cytologists, and how do you practice, and how do you make improvements in the field, move forward. But it also kind of focuses on practical issues. And I think that's kind of key, especially when you're practicing in the community, because where you may not have the luxury of, the infrastructure that an academic practice has. I do molecular in addition to cytology. So from a molecular standpoint, there are so many of these molecular tests, and maybe some of the academic centers have testing that's available at their institution, but a lot of the community practice is actually sending stuff outside. And something that Momin mentioned, how do we make sure that because our job in cytology is to make sure that we're collecting an adequate sample, that the sample is processed correctly, that whatever we're doing, because we're all working towards the same goal, we want to make sure that we're giving the right diagnosis, that we're collecting an adequate sample, and we're able to provide all of the testing that's required to treat that patient. So all of these practical aspects, I think, are covered in the program schedule for the annual meeting. And I think that's one of the key things that ASC brings, kind of keeping in mind that we're all one family, maybe practicing in different settings, but kind of addressing some of the challenges and the limitations that certain settings may have.
Thank you. Oscar, so you have trained many fellows since you have been the director of have been the director of cytology. You have seen a lot of people come and go through the institution. Memorial has many fellows. So what are your thoughts about it? Does ASC annual meeting on its own creates that balance, or we kind of fail? What are your thoughts?
So I think that, ASC has done a great job. And I think you also, you have been responsible for many of these scientific programs, and you have done a wonderful job balancing on the academic and as well as some of the community practice needs as well. I think some changes that I have seen with including the introduction of a base cytology or the courses that were introduced last year, I think were a great addition. I think that's something that I heard my fellows saying, that that is something that was missing in the previous ASCs, and it's we would like to see more of this. And one suggestion that I have, going back to your previous question, is maybe we can find a way to encourage more first-time attendees, or to bring the junior trainees to the meetings. And one suggestion is maybe we can think about ways how we can improve the poster presentation experience. It's not a problem unique to ASC, but to all the other organizations as well. But I think that's a good way to bring them. I remember when I was much younger, one way to be present at these meetings and learn was to presenting these posters. And I think if we can make this more of an engaging experience, I think that will be a great addition to the meeting.
Okay. I'm going to come to Swikrity in a second, but Amber, I have a question for you. So, do you think ASC annual meeting can be a spot? Because I'm always a stickler where we know everybody has a different way of presenting content. So in a sense, we develop our own educational way of teaching or kind of tools. So do you think ASC annual meeting, and which is kind of my wish list, is that there is a session or there is some kind of a workshop where we teach people how to teach? You know, we have the content. They see somebody and so do you think that is something annual meeting can be a spot for, or has to be a separate event? What do you think?
Oh, I think that would be perfect, because I mean, I do think that we have, you know, we are heavy on the academics, going back to your last question. But I do think that everyone can always learn. And I think that, you know, people do have a different way of teaching and presenting, and there's all kinds of new tricks and tools and things out there. So, you know, I think we can all learn from each other. And I think it would be a perfect opportunity for somebody just coming into, you know, either a fellowship program who needs to, you know, teach fellows or residents or, you know, cytologists. I think that would be perfect. And it might encourage people to then sign up for presentations and workshops and things like that, because maybe they feel that now they have a skill that they didn't have before.
Yeah, I mean, my one best experience that I had at one of the ASCP meeting, and it was actually one of the ASCP meetings, was where a mentor and mentee were combined to do a microscopic session, and it was just fantastic, because they were a little bit disagreeing on this is how and that really gave this major perspective. And I can see that how that person was at the same time, that was the development and was happening right there. So I think that is where I think we need to, because not all of us will be be doing this forever, at least me. So I mean, that for me, it is important to have that development concept. So Swikrity, what do you think will be the best way to do it? Very short statement that ASC can help to develop faculty, because we have to keep that pool and we cannot be using the same people over and over again. So
I second your thought of combining mentor and mentee. You know, that's an absolutely great opportunity for a first timer like me to be a part of the faculty. You know, this is going to be my first time actually in ASC 2023. I'll be a part of the Papi-Nicolau Society companion meeting, and I'll be giving a talk. Similar opportunities, if open to the junior faculty, will give them more confidence, you know, and they will learn from their experience from the seniors as well. The next thing, to include cytologists, residents, and fellow, and even the community practice, to whom even after they are signing out cytopathology, they always think it as a challenge whenever they have to go and do a rapid on-site evaluation. You know, so maybe we can bring up a crash course for them, like we are doing for the residents from this year virtually. Doing that same thing in a person, even though for a half a day, is going to make a huge difference, because like you are, like everybody is saying that, you know, it's like you are teaching them how to teach and interpret at the same time.
Good. Wanda, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I just want to quickly interject, and just thinking back to my first experience, I went to the first session I went to was actually the strategies and education session. And it was that year sort of an improv, like you learned improv, like how to interact with people. It was really, I'm not sort of like that, but it was like really interesting. So I just wanted to draw attention to the strategy sessions. There's one in cytopathology for program directors, and then also one for cytotechnologists, but everybody is welcome to those. And, they're awesome sessions. Last year, it was led by Sarah Monaco, and it was an amazing session where we had roundtables and really went through and talked about how we institute the milestones. So really try and building on the audience as well, their experiences. So it was a great way to learn and teach sort of how to educate. Again, it's not just open to program directors, it's open to everybody. This year we have a great session as well lined up, which I'm helping to lead as the ASC Cytopathology Program Director Committee Chair. So really excited to do that this year. And it's going to be also, there's always two parts. One of the parts will be speaking specifically on the fellowship. So, we'd love for everybody to come to that, and just a reminder that there are great sessions that are open to everybody to come and really are educational, very practical things.
Manju, do you think that from the cytoprofessional or cytologist point of view, ASC does a good job of being inclusive of that group?
I think we do a tremendous job. But, if you ask me to include anything in there, I would definitely say, cytology students, the current students who are going through the program, they need to be more involved in the professional organization, understand how it works, to start the networking even before they are out of the program, practicing cytology. That I would really, really like to see. And the other thing is, like Amber said and Swikrity said, the teaching part. So now I don't know about others. As an educator, as a program director, now I see lots of non-traditional students who are getting easily overwhelmed and burnt out with, the teaching. So it may be really helpful to have some sessions on, strategies to teach the non-traditional students, and also have some strategies on, mental health and well-being incorporated into the scientific content in our meeting, so that, it'll be helpful for the educators and also everybody who is kind of, getting a little bit of burned out every day in our life. So definitely involvement of students, and the teaching strategies I would emphasize.
Michiya, very short statement. What do you think from the education, developing educators? How good a job we are doing, or what will be the quick strategy that we can employ to do that?
Yeah, so just very briefly, I like the idea of the paired mentor-mentee in the courses. Mm-hmm. I also like the idea that of bringing that improv. I remember at the Shark Tank, that was one of the things that the contestants had to go through, and just sharing a little bit about my personal receiving mentorship from Ritu. When I approached her and said, I am a very much an introverted personality. What do I need to do to kind of move beyond that? And she suggested improv, and I kind of looked into resources locally and online, and I think that's really been helpful in just beyond comedy, of course, but in just interacting with people and developing educational resources. So that could be something fun to try.
Deanna, last question. So do you think the international community of pathologists or trainees or anybody who makes it to the ASC annual meeting will also be interested in developing educational content which can help them to be better educators? What are your thoughts about it? You're muted, Deanna.
Yes, great question. Yes, I think that we should be involved also in this, because for us sometimes apart from the teaching point, there is also the language issues, and so it's a mix of things that maybe some international people need to not modify, but to modulate and to use, unless they learn by by ourselves as we do. So yes, I think also because with the European Federation of Cytology Society, we have this type of, we are doing this type of work also, only for the European, of course. So absolutely, yes, I think.
So Ash, I'm going to ask you a question as you're driving your Mercedes. So what do you think?
No, it's all right. I'm in the back seat. I'm not actually driving, so it's okay. So yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of support that we can and
I think Ash, you're breaking up, so we're going to be play safe here and not. Okay, last, Sinchita, what do you think?
We can be doing both with the European Federation, but also the ISC, the International Academy, and
So Ash, you're breaking up.
I'm back. So I was just saying, collaboration, like Dino was suggesting. Okay, I'll go silent for a while. Maybe if I switch the video off, you might be able to hear me a bit better. Yeah. All right, okay. So like Diana, I was also suggesting a collaboration both with the EFCS and the ISC. They're all independently developing similar modules to the ones that you describe. And I think putting our resources and efforts together might be more rewarding. And we can address those through the education committees of both the European Federation and the ISC.
Sinchita, parting thoughts about that question?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that was said. And I also second the idea of the improv because, I think everybody in the cytopathology community obviously practices cytology. Everybody is a master of the content, but how we educate, how we teach other people, that varies. Like we've always, everyone's been to courses where someone's been teaching and you're blown away and then you try to learn from that, how are they teaching that makes it so interesting, that engages you. And improv, I did as part of the Shark Tank. I agree with Michiya, and Vanda. It was really life-changing. Several of us in pathology are kind of introverted, and it's hard to communicate and kind of engage with people. And I think the one thing it taught you is to think of it as like, how do you communicate what you're doing, what you're practicing, what your science, your research to someone who's a layperson who has no idea of what you're talking about. And to even think of it that way, I think that was really revealing, because that was not something that we were used to. You're just used to talking to people in your network who understand your cells and the DNA and whatever morphology you're describing. So they literally pulled people off the street in Chicago and brought them into our sessions and made us explain your research to them. So having to think of it in a different way, I think that was really helpful. And I think if we can have these sessions for people who are new in practice, junior faculty, who kind of have a different way of thinking and opening up the doors to like how you can be better educators, I think that would be very helpful.
Great, thank you so much. So amazing group of people. Thank you so much for taking time to do this. So that shows all your love for ASC, because you're taking time to do this. It's not, and I'm sure everybody has a lot to do today, but so I've been very lucky to be part of this organization and really can call you guys as my family, professional family, because I see similar faces, see you every year at ASC and other thing. And, our love for cytology goes a long way. What was been taught to it and what we've been teaching forward. So my pitch for everyone who's going to watch this video is to come to ASC meeting. At least if you have not, you're missing a lot, give it a try, and it will be the best experience of your life. So thank you, everybody. And by this, I bid you a good day for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.